Hello everyone and welcome to part 3 of the Eurofly 3 tutorial series. In this next one, well actually in parts 3, 4 and 5, we'll be talking about the map, getting around the map and making full use of it. And in part 3, I'll be focusing on how to read the map and how to get the most information out of it that you possibly can. So let's take a look at World Map Exploration. World Map Exploration. As soon as we enter it,
Europe, Slovakia, Bratislavski Kraj, Bratislava 1, Bratislava, Stare Mesto, Vilovo, list.
we'll be told where exactly we are on the map at the moment. As you can hear, the location names in most countries are read in their respective languages. And for now, at the time of recording this, we always start in Bratislava, which is the capital of Slovakia, because as you probably know, the main developer of the game, Stefan, is a Slovak himself, so that's probably why. And we seem to start here every time we launch map exploration. The first thing I'd like to point out is the volume mixer again, that we've talked about before in the previous two parts, but I would just like to give you a quick reminder that you can bring it up at any time with Ctrl-Shift-F12. And when we do,
Volume settings dialog. Map music combo box 12 collapsed.
because it's contextual, we have different sliders in here this time, and there's more of them. The first one is the map music. It acts the same as the menu music one does. I think 12 is a perfect volume for the purposes of this tutorial, but I could raise it,
22, 32,
or lower it,
12.
and so on. And if we go through this dialog with tab,
Map sounds combo box 100 collapsed.
there's more sliders, like I said. The next one is map sounds. That's used when crossing state borders or when crossing a meridian or parallel.
Cities and waypoints combo box 100 collapsed.
The next one is what controls the volume of the audio cues for the navigation of capital cities and waypoints.
Height above sea level combo box 100 collapsed.
The next one is the audible indication of the current height above the sea level.
Navigation combo box 50 collapsed.
And the last one, which is available in World Map Exploration, is the volume for navigation sounds that play when you have navigation to a specific waypoint or to a certain destination turned on.
OK button carriage return.
That's it for the volume mixer.
Eurofly 3 window.
So in this part, I'll show you how to answer 3 basic questions. Where we are, what's around us, and what's in the world. As for where we're located, someone may be interested in the coordinates, whereas someone else may be interested in the name of the city and of the country. As for the first question, where we are located represented in coordinates, that's what the K, L, and semicolon keys are going to tell us. They are right next to each other on the keyboard, so they should be easy to remember. The K key reads out our latitude. That's the information where, if you imagine that you're running along the globe, around a physical tactile globe with your finger in the vertical direction, so top to bottom, the latitude number tells us how high up we are located on the globe. So north to south. L reads out our longitude. That's the east-west location, so from left to right. And the semicolon key reads out our current height above the sea level. So K,
48.125.
48.125. And since we know that in the vertical center of the globe there's the equator, we can tell that we are located somewhere in the northern hemisphere and pretty close to its center, since there are parallels running vertically from the equator And if we go up or north from the equator, they're numbered sequentially with positive numbers. And if we go down or south from the equator, they're numbered with negative numbers. So the parallel 48.125 means we are 48 parallels above the equator, or to the north of the equator. There are 90 parallels in both directions from the equator, both to the north, so positive numbered parallels, and also 90 of them to the south of the equator, so negative numbered parallels. The L key,
17.070.
17.070, and that tells us that we're to the east of meridian 0 because, as I'm sure you know, meridian 0 runs across Europe through part of Great Britain, and meridians to the east of that are counted with positive numbers sequentially again, and to the west of meridian 0 they're numbered with negative numbers. And the height above sea level at our current point is 135 meters. So this is the numeric data that we can get out of the map about our current location. And as for the named information, we can find that out with the keys on the numbers row 1 to 7, and also with the 0 key. In order to understand this information and to be able to use it efficiently, we need to know how the map is structured. The map in Eurofly 3 consists of objects that are nested into each other. For instance, if you imagine a huge polygonal shape which represents a continent, and if you were to draw it on a map, then into this large shape you can put smaller ones which would represent the individual countries. In each country you could draw smaller ones still for regions and provinces. In each region or province there could be smaller shapes for districts, yet smaller ones for cities. And if we wanted to be really thorough, you could also have like the individual neighborhoods or even blocks in each city. So Eurofly 3 is able to tell us each of these pieces of information about our location separately. And the level of detail for each location depends on the accuracy or, level of depth of the map itself for each location. Basically, how detailed the data was put into the map by the people who created it. These pieces of information under the keys 1 to 7 are called levels in Eurofly 3. So each key announces each individual level separately. If we press 1,
Europe,
we are told that we are in Europe. Level 1 is always the highest one, and it always covers either the continent, or in case we're not currently on a continent, on a landmass, but at the sea, it would say the name of the sea in that case. And the individual seas don't have any more lower level objects under them. So in this case, we are located in Europe. Level 2, below that,
Slovakia,
is Slovakia. So in this case, it tells us the country.
Bratislavský Kraj.
Level 3 in English means the Bratislava region.
Bratislava 1.
Bratislava 1 is level 4.
Bratislava
is level 5.
Staré Mesto.
And Old Town is the part of Bratislava that we are at on level 6.
Blank.
Level 7 is not used in this case, it's empty. The lowest level that will be told at a particular location or that has some information under it always depends both on the accuracy of the map itself, as I said, as well as on the level of detail of the administrative structure of that region, of that country, of that city. So that means that at each location, the lowest level with some useful information will always be different. It doesn't always necessarily have to be level 7. And that's what the 0 key is used for.
Stair Mesto.
That always tells us the lowest level that we are currently at, which does have some useful information. In this case, the Stare Mesto, the old town name, was under level 6.
Stair Mesto.
So the 0 key is there so that you don't always have to keep pressing all the keys from 1 to 7, one after another to find out the lowest level of detail where you currently are, but you can always just use the 0 key for that to quickly find out the lowest level information about your location. As I said, which will always be different for different locations. So we found out that we are in Slovakia, in Bratislava, in the old town part of the town. But there's also one more piece of information that we can find out, which is revealed by pressing the F3 key. And that key, or the information that it gives us, is called the country cutout. And what does it mean to have a country cutout? I'm sure you know that states and countries are not just regular shapes like circles or squares or rectangles, but that they are in fact polygonal structures of varying shapes and sizes. So if you imagined that you draw a square around the shape of such a country, to have the shape of the country included, embedded inside the square. And then from the lower left corner of that square, you draw a vertical line going up as well as a horizontal line going right. The F3 key will then tell us in which part of the country cutout we are located in the form of percentages. So basically how high up and how far to the right within the shape of the country we currently are. So if we press F3 now,
22.4.
It's at 22.4. It means that we are currently, while we are in Bratislava in the
Stair Mesto,
in the old town part, that we are 22% high up, so to the north of the country cutout, and 4% to the right in the country cutout, in its shape.
22.4.
So if you were to look at the map, the first number in this country cutout refers to the lowest point in the country, starting at 0, but not lowest as in terrain-wise, but from south to north. So 22% means that we are 22% up or to the north of the southmost boundary of the country, meaning almost at a quarter of its height, whereas we're only 4% right of its leftmost, of its westmost point. So that means we are virtually on the very left edge of Slovakia at this point. You can easily find yourself at a point or in a location in a given country which is on the border with its neighboring country. But that doesn't mean that the country doesn't span any further north or east of that point, for the reason that the countries are not regular shapes. They're pretty irregular and diverse, so that doesn't have to mean that it doesn't go any further to the south, but it just means that the parts of the country that are further away to the south from your current location are located elsewhere in a different part of the country, not on the border where you're currently standing. This is true even in the case of Slovakia, and I'm going to demonstrate that in a little while. But let's find out something more about the continent where we are currently at, because we can also do that. So we know we are currently in Europe.
Europe.
And we can also get the cutout of the entire continent, not just of the current country. The continent cutout is read out with Control F3.
3822.
So F3 is for the country itself.
224.
Whereas Control F3
3822
is for the continent. That means we're currently located 38% to the north of the southmost point in Europe and
3822
22% to the right of the westmost point in Europe. There's more useful information that we can find out about the location. When I was talking about the westmost, the eastmost, southmost, northmost point of the country or continent, we can also find out how wide or tall, so to speak, the given continent or country where we're currently located, how wide or tall it is at the given point on the map. We can find this out with the H and V keys, which are abbreviations. H is for horizontal and V is for vertical. The horizontal is a line that goes from west to east. So if you imagine that you drew this horizontal line across the entire Slovakia, going from left to right. When I say left to right, I refer to the west on the left or to the east on the right, just to hopefully make the process of imagining this a little bit easier for you. So if we drew the horizontal across Slovakia, the H key would tell us how wide or how far that line spans from left to right.
179 kilometers Austria-Hungary, 12 minutes.
So it's said that it's 179 kilometers across from the west to the east. On our left, there's Austria, so to the west of Slovakia, at this location.
179 kilometers Austria-Hungary, 12 minutes.
And to the right or to the east, there's Hungary. And it also mentioned 12 minutes. And you may be wondering what these 12 minutes is talking about. Well, this is how long it would take you to traverse that distance. And we can actually configure for ourselves by which means of transport we would like to hypothetically move in this case. So when we're interested in knowing how long it would take to traverse that distance, we can specify the means. The Control backspace shortcut is used for that. So I'm just going to start pressing it now, and it's going to wrap around among all the various options that are there.
On foot, 5 kilometers.
So on foot, that's approximately at the speed of 5 kilometers per hour.
By bicycle, 20 kilometers.
By bicycle, at the speed of 20 kilometers per hour.
By bus, 60 kilometers.
By bus, which is at the speed of 60 kilometers per hour.
By car, 90 kilometers.
By car, 90 kilometers per hour.
On the highway, 130 kilometers.
On the highway, 130 kilometers per hour.
By plane, 850 kilometers.
Or by plane, which is at the speed of 850 kilometers per hour. So let's wrap around back to on foot.
On foot, 5 kilometers.
So the speed of 5 kilometers per hour. And if I now press the H key to find out how wide Slovakia is at the current location and how long it would take us to traverse that distance, we'll find out that
179 kilometers Austria-Hungary, 1 days, 12 hours, 2 minutes.
It would take us about 1 day, 12 hours and some minutes to traverse that distance on foot. Let's switch to car.
By bus, by car, 90 kilometers.
And let's see now.
179 kilometers Austria-Hungary, 1 hours, 59 minutes.
It would take approximately 1 hour and 59 minutes in this case. We can also find out the same kind of information for the vertical, meaning how long it would take us to traverse across the entire height of Slovakia from south to north.
75 kilometers Czech Republic, Austria, 49 minutes.
And in this case, it would take just about 49 minutes by car. And there's the Czech Republic to the south of Slovakia and Austria to the north. Let me point out that this is the horizontal and vertical. Again, as always, as goes for everything else, for all the other information about the map, the horizontal and vertical at our current point, our current location on the map. Meaning that if we were located in a different part of Slovakia, at a different latitude and longitude, these horizontals and verticals and the information about how long it would take to traverse that distance would obviously be different. We can also find the same information about the horizontal and the vertical about the continent with Control H for the horizontal of the continent.
3,750 kilometers Celtic Sea, Asia, Kazakhstan, 1 day 17 hours 39 minutes.
And with Control V for the vertical of Europe at this location.
1,273 kilometers Baltic Sea, Adriatic Sea, 14 hours 8 minutes.
So the Baltic Sea is to the south of Europe at this location, and the Adriatic Sea is to the north. So that's the information about the location where we are currently located. And now let's answer the second question that we had, and that is, what's around us? And in order to find that out, Eurofly 3 offers a lot of different tools, and we can find out what's on our left, what's on our right, what's ahead of us, and what's behind us. So to find out what's ahead of us, the closest object that's ahead of us, we press the J key, and to find out the closest object that's behind us, we press the M key for mother. So let's press J to find out what's ahead.
74 kilometers Czech Republic, 49 minutes.
We found out that it's the Czech Republic, that it's 74 kilometers to the north of our current location, and that it would take us 49 minutes to get there by car. And if we do M,
0,6 km Austria, 0 minutes.
There's Austria to the south of us, just 0.6 kilometers away, meaning we're almost literally at the Austrian border at the time, where Slovakia borders with Austria. These two keys, J and M, on their own will only tell us this information for the country, like which country is the closest. And if we do Control J or Control M, we'll find this out on the level of entire continents and seas. So which continent or sea is the closest to us, to our current location, either ahead or behind? So let's do Control J for ahead.
732 kilometers Baltic Sea, 8 hours 7 minutes.
There's the Baltic Sea to the north or ahead of us, 730 something kilometers away.
542 kilometers Adriatic Sea, 6 hours 1 minutes.
And there's the Adriatic Sea behind us. To find out what's on our left, we press the U key.
Austria, 0,6 km.
It's also Austria. To find out what's on our right, the I key.
Hungary, 179 kilometers.
That's Hungary. And to find out what's around in all directions, we press O.
Combo box roulette collapsed.
And here we have the situation that I was talking about in the previous part when we were going through settings. Since there are 5 objects around us, the program is not going to just spit out 5 different names, but it has displayed them in a combo box that we can now go through with the arrow keys to read the surrounding objects or countries one by one.
0 Czech Republic, 74 km.
So the first one is 0 Czech Republic, 74 kilometers.
41 Poland, 206 kilometers.
41 Poland, 206 kilometers.
76 Ukraine, 416 kilometers.
76 Ukraine, 416 kilometers.
80 Hungary, 258 kilometers.
80 Hungary, 208 kilometers.
124 Austria, 1,0 km.
And 124 Austria, 1 kilometer.
353 Czech Republic, 63 km.
And 353 Czech Republic, 63 kilometers. Now, what are these numbers that were spoken before the names of the countries? These numbers refer to the compass direction in relation to our current location. So, if we started in Bratislava facing north, which is 0 degrees on the compass,
0 Czech Republic 74 km.
That means that the Czech Republic is to our north 74 kilometers ahead. If we then kept turning to the right along the compass, there would be
41 Poland 200.
Poland starts at 41 degrees, which is roughly somewhere in the middle between north and east.
76 Ukraine 406.
Ukraine would be at 76 degrees.
80 Hungary 200.
Hungary begins at 80 degrees.
124 Austria.
And Austria at 124 degrees from our current location. So I've just escaped out of the list. So these numbers refer to the compass degrees, and since it may be a little difficult for some people to figure out the compass directions and to make any sense out of them, Eurofly also offers the possibility to have directions displayed as numbers on the clock face. So 0 in the case of the compass directions that we have set now means the position of north on the compass, whereas if we use the clock face readout, the north position would be represented by the number 12 on the clock face for directly ahead of us. It may be a little easier to imagine, but of course it's also less accurate. So let's give it a try. We can switch the compass readout type with Control F2.
Compass clock.
It says compass clock. And now if I press O again,
combo box relat collapsed. 12 Czech Republic 74 km.
The Czech Republic is at 12.
1 Poland 206 km.
Poland is 1.
3 Ukraine 416.
Ukraine at 3.
3 Hungary 200.
Hungary at 3.
4 Austria 1,0.
Austria at 4.
12 Czech Republic 63.
And we've turned all the way around back to 12, where there's the Czech Republic again. Now, if you're asking how it's possible that there can be two different countries at the same spot and the same number on the clock, as you heard in this case, there were two countries.
3 Ukraine, 4
Ukraine,
3
and Hungary at the number 3. That's exactly for the reason that, as I was saying before, this clock face compass is a little bit less precise or less accurate. So I've just escaped out of the list, and let me put the compass back to the degrees readout again with Control F2.
Compass degrees.
Compass degrees. This key also wraps around the options. And let's also talk about one more important thing, and that is in which direction we are currently even looking. All this information that I was just demonstrating, what's on our left, what's on our right, what's ahead of us, depends on the way or in the direction that we're currently facing, that we're currently looking in. There are three keys used to control the direction of the view, and they are the keys A, S, D, which are located under the left hand on the keyboard. The S key reads our current direction of the view,
north,
which is north. And if we press D, we can rotate 1 degree to the right, or if we press A, we can rotate 1 degree to the left. So let me press D now. 1 degree, 2 degrees, 3,
4, 5.
4, 5. If I hold down Shift along with the D key, it'll rotate me by 10 degrees.
15, 25, 35, northeast, 55.
Or if I hold down Control, each press is always going to turn me to the closest cardinal direction.
East, south, west, north.
And we can obviously do the same for the A key. So either a Shift A,
350, 340.
Or Control A.
West, south, east, north.
So let's face east now
East.
with Control D. So if we were to press the J and M keys at this time, they will mention some other objects. Before, when we were facing north, if you can remember that, under the J key ahead of us there was the Czech Republic, and behind us under M there was Austria. So if I press the J key now,
179 kilometers Hungary, 1 hours 59 minutes.
there's Hungary is ahead of us. Behind us, M
0,6 km Austria, 0 minutes.
is Austria. On our right with U,
Czech Republic 74 km.
there's the Czech Republic, and on our left with I,
Austria 0,6 km.
there's Austria. Now if I press the O key again to find out what's around us,
Combo box roulette collapsed. 0 Hungary 179 kilometers.
we hear that Hungary is at 0.
0 Hungary 34 Austria 1.
Austria is at 34 degrees.
263 Czech Republic 60.
263 degrees Czech Republic.
311 Poland 200.
311 degrees Poland.
346 Ukraine 400.
346 Ukraine.
350 Hungary 200.
And 350 Hungary again.
Eurofly.
As you can tell, this time around the numbers are completely different than they were before.
Eurofly.
That is because if it says, for instance, 90 Hungary, that is still the absolute direction on the compass. So even though we are currently facing east, Hungary is still at 90 degrees in relation to our current location. So it's still due east. And this way of having the information read out can be pretty difficult to imagine. So Eurofly allows us to change the position or the orientation of the actual 0 on the compass. It doesn't necessarily have to refer to the actual geographical north all the time, but it can instead be configured in such a way that 0 always refers to dead ahead in relation to our current direction of view, to where we are currently looking. So if I now press the F2 key on its own,
0 is dead ahead.
It says 0 is dead ahead. So I've just changed the orientation of 0. If I press F2 again,
0 is to the north.
It moves back to what it was before, where 0 is to the north. This also wraps around. So if I switch the orientation of 0 to dead ahead,
0 is dead ahead.
And open up the list of the countries around us again with the O key.
Combo box roulette collapsed. 0 Hungary 179 kilometers.
Hungary is at 0 now. It's still to the east, but it's now referring to in front of us.
34 Austria 1,0 km.
Austria is just 34 degrees on our right, meaning that it's just slightly off to the right, slightly right of center.
263 Czech Republic 63 km.
Czech Republic is at 263 degrees, which means almost due left of our current facing. Now, since we're facing east and 0 is ahead of us, it actually means that the Czech Republic is almost due north.
311 Poland 200.
311 Poland.
346 Ukraine 416 kilometers.
And Ukraine is almost dead ahead to the east, but only very slightly off to the north.
350 Hungary 258 kilometers.
When opening the list of objects around us with O, you may have noticed that the first item in the list was actually not a country, but rather the word relative.
Combo box roulette collapsed.
That's letting us know that we have changed the orientation of 0, so that we are using the option where 0 is dead ahead. So this makes viewing the compass considerably easier, because if we have it set so that 0 means dead ahead of us, we can still keep using the common knowledge that north is ahead, south is behind, east is right hand, west is left hand. But now in this case, it always refers to where we're currently looking. So if we are facing east, 0 now doesn't mean the literal actual geographical north, but it means 0 is dead ahead of us, which is actually to the east. 90 means to our right. 270 means straight to our left. And 180 means straight behind. And to finish this part, let's switch the compass to the clock face again with Control F2.
Compass clock.
And let's demonstrate this combination. So if I press O again,
combo box relat collapsed. 12 Hungary 179 kilometers.
It now says that Hungary is at 12 o'clock.
12 Austria 0,0 km.
Austria is also at 12 o'clock, but much closer.
9 Czech Republic 65 km.
Czech Republic is at 9 o'clock.
10 Poland 207 kilometers.
Poland is at 10 o'clock.
12 Ukraine 416 kilometers.
And Ukraine is also at 12 o'clock.
12 Hungary 258 kilometers.
And back to Hungary, also at 12 o'clock.
Eurofly 3.
So let's now face south.
South.
And let's press the O key again.
Combo box relat collapsed. 12 Austria 0,0 km.
So Austria is at 12 o'clock this time.
6 Czech Republic 65 km.
Czech Republic is at 6 o'clock.
7 Poland 207 kilometers.
Poland is at 7.
9 Ukraine 416 kilometers.
Ukraine is at 9 o'clock.
9 Hungary 258
as well
kilometers.
as Hungary.
9 Austria 0,0 km.
And Austria is at 9 o'clock as well. Note that when we were doing this before, while facing north, the values have actually been turned around, so that Austria
9 Hungary 2
and Hungary
9 Ukraine 4
and Ukraine were at 3 o'clock, whereas now they're at 9 o'clock. And that's exactly because we're using the relative compass, so that what was once on our right hand is now on our left, now that we've turned around completely 180 degrees and are no longer facing north, but are now instead facing south.
Eurofly.
If I put the compass orientation back to the actual north,
0 is to the north,
and press O again,
combo box 6 Austria 0,0.
Notice that Austria is now at 6 o'clock.
12 Czech Republic 6.
Czech Republic is at 12 o'clock.
1 Poland 200 and
Poland is at 1.
3 Ukraine 400.
3 Ukraine.
3 Hungary 200.
3 Hungary. 3 Austria.
Euro.
That's because they're still at the same positions as they were before, obviously. But we are now looking in the opposite direction to the north. So that's why the values are now turned around again. So the 3 is no longer on our right, as we may have thought. But it's now actually on our left, because the 12 of the clock face is no longer referring to what's dead ahead of us, but it's now referring to the actual north. So by having these options of the compass readout, either degrees or clock, and the orientation of 0, that's how Eurofly is trying to solve a very important question, and that is how to synchronize the actual positions of objects with where we are currently looking at. Well, my personal preference is, what I like using is to
0 is dead ahead.
Have the relative compass where 0 is dead ahead.
Compass degrees.
But to have it read out in degrees. And at that point, if it tells me that something is at 90 degrees, I can easily imagine that 90 degrees is my right hand, meaning that it's actually due right of my current direction of view. I'm going to face north again.
East. North.
And we've answered the question of what's around us. We've introduced the keys U, I, O. And we've mentioned that U means what's on our left, I means what's on our right, and O means what's around us. I'll continue the demonstration with the P key, which also tells us what's ahead.
Czech Republic 75 km.
At first, it seems to be doing exactly the same thing as the J key, but let's now press these keys along with the Control key. That's going to tell us not just the single closest thing that's in that direction, but multiple of them. Control U is going to tell us all the objects that are located in a kind of a semi-arc, starting dead ahead, going all the way to the object that's on our leftmost. That's the farthest away to the left.
Relat 0 Czech Republic 75 km 8 Austria 60 kilometers.
We heard that there is the Czech Republic and Austria. We've heard the important word of relative, and we heard that the Czech Republic is at 0 degrees and that Austria is at 8 degrees. It's relative, meaning that Austria starts at 8 degrees to our left and keeps going all the way up to the very left. Control I.
Combo box Relat collapsed.
There's obviously more information again, more objects, so that's why the program presented us with a list.
0 Czech Republic 75 km.
Czech Republic at 0 degrees.
41 Poland 207 kilometers.
Slightly off to the right at 41 degrees, meaning to the northeast. That's where Poland starts.
76 Ukraine 416 kilometers.
Ukraine starts at 76 degrees, meaning almost to our very right.
80 Hungary 258 kilometers.
Hungary is even closer to the very right. And that's it.
Eurofly 3 wind.
Control P says which countries are ahead, but more than one.
Czech Republic, Poland, Baltic Sea, Europe, Sweden, Baltic Sea, Europe, Sweden, Baltic Sea, Europe, Sweden, Gulf of Bothnia, Europe, Sweden.
So with Control P, we looked for many, many, many kilometers ahead of us. Let's now combine these keys with Shift. The principle is going to be the very same, but instead of announcing countries, it's now going to announce the cities in that direction. So let's do Shift U for cities to the left.
Bergwolfsthal, Fachtel, Hunsheim, Neusiedlung, Bad Deutsch, Altenburg, Petronell, Karnuntum, Eckertz, Oregelsbrunn, Haslau, und der Donau.
We've heard 10 names of places that are on our left, but since most of them are in German, they were probably not intelligible at all with our current English synthesis. Now let's do Shift I for 10 places on our right.
Petrotsalka, Ovsist, Brenner, Komarav, Pojonij, Biskupies, Most Pri, Bratislav, Heidgat, Tomasov, Kakani, Rastus.
Shift O, the cities around us.
Combo box Relat collapsed. 0 Karlova VES. 2 Kaliba. 22 Vinaradi. 25 Bratislava.
These are Czech and Slovak cities for the most part.
56 Petrotsalka. 91 Kitsi. 270 Berg.
And we're getting to Austria.
310 Karlova VES.
And back to Czech Republic.
Eurofly 3.
And Shift P.
Karlova VES, Zalezna, Lamak, Marianka, Borinka, Stupava, Lazarno, Jablanov, Novi Dvor, Malaki.
These are the cities directly ahead of us. Now, Control Shift U, cities in a semicircle from in front to our left. Control Shift I, cities in a semicircle from in front to our right. Control Shift P, multiple cities ahead of us. And Control Shift O, multiple cities all around us in all directions. And finally, let's talk a little bit about the height above the sea level. We can find out our current height above the sea level with the semicolon key.
135.
It says 135 meters. But we can also find out the closest object ahead of us with a greater height above sea level than what our current location is. And that is done with Control semicolon.
1,3 km stair Mesto 144 m 0 minutes.
And we heard that the closest higher object is
1,3 km stair mesto 144.
1.3 kilometers away with a height
1,3 km stair mesto 144
144 meters, and that it's still the old town part of Bratislava, if you can remember, if you can understand that piece of information from the beginning. You might be wondering how this is possible. Well, it's important to realize that Bratislava is built in a terrain with hills. It's built on a hill, basically. And since the hillside is also quite irregular, it can actually happen that the closest object with a greater height above sea level can still be very close. Not to mention that the 135 meters of height above sea level means when looked at from ground level, like how high up above the sea the ground starts. We're actually, so to speak, we're looking at this with our feet, not from the eye level. Also, when a person is looking up, they raise their head up, so the eyes are also a little higher than the ground would be. Whereas this feature works in such a way that it actually looks directly straight ahead at the given height or altitude. The current height above sea level is 135 meters, so that means we're literally as if looking with our feet. But obviously we don't want to be looking around with our feet, we want to be looking around from a slightly higher position, and that's why there's a feature in Eurofly 3 called the tolerance for the height above sea level. We bring it up with Control-Shift-semicolon.
0 dialog, edit 0.
And it brings up a dialog with a standard edit field where we can type in any value that we like. So we could set the point of view, so to speak, to be higher than 0, than the actual level of the ground. We could set it to be 2 meters higher than that, or 5 meters or 15 meters. So basically here you can set the height above the actual ground that you want to be looking at the map. So if we set this to, let's say, 10 meters
10.
and press enter,
Eurofly 3.
we will now be looking in front of us at the height above sea level, not from the position of our feet, but actually from 10 meters above. So, for instance, where a drone might be flying. And if we press Control-semicolon now, it's going to tell us the closest object with a greater height above sea level from that position of 10 meters high.
2,7 km Karlova VES 149 m 1 minutes.
And we heard the name of a Czech village, which is 2.7 kilometers ahead and has a height above sea level of 149 meters. So meaning 14 meters. Yeah, because our current height of the old town in Bratislava above sea level is
135.
135. So that Czech village is 14 meters higher above the sea than the old town in Bratislava is. Now let's try for a change. Let's say that we'll set the viewing point or the viewing altitude, let's say, to 1,500 meters.
Blank. 0 dialog. Edit 0. 0. 1,500.
To 1,500 meters, which is 1.5 kilometers above ground.
Eurofly 3 window. West. Not detected.
And we'll see that it said not detected. So that means that at this current point and in this current direction, there's no hill or no mountain that would be higher than 1.5 kilometers above the sea. So this relatively extensive part has covered the second of our 3 initial questions of what's around us. And now let's spend a little more time on answering the final question, and that is, what's in the world? Eurofly offers several different keystrokes for this, which are organized starting with the F5 key all the way to F11. So the keys F5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, each of them will give us slightly different information, but in the same way or using the same principle. F5 talks about continents and seas. F6 covers countries. F7 is capital cities all over the world. F8 gives us airports. F9 covers our favorites, so our personal favorite locations that we have saved. F10 covers important locations. These are built by the entire community together. And F11 covers islands. So if we want to focus on capital cities, for instance, we'll be talking about the F7 key. And it always works in the following way. If we press F7 on its own, it'll give us a tree view.
Tree view. Asia, 55. Africa, 58. Collapsed. Asia, 55. Collapsed. Europe, 55. Collapsed. North America, 102. Collapsed. South America, 14. Collapsed. Australia and Oceania, 34. Collapsed. Antarctica, 3. Collapsed.
So this always lists the respective continent, saying how many capitals there are. For instance, there are just 3 of them in Antarctica. We can expand this or open each continent with the right arrow.
Expanded.
And we'll now see, by pressing the down arrow, we can see which are the 3 capital cities in Antarctica.
Antarctica MC Meadow Station, 16,452 kilometers, 102 left, 7 days, 14 hours, 47 minutes. French Southern and Antarctic Territories Port Auxiliary Fernseh, 11,944 kilometers, 123 left, 5 days, 12 hours, 42 minutes. South Georgia and South Sandwich Islands Grytviken, 12,451 kilometers, 60 left, 5 days, 18 hours, 20 minutes.
So this tree view is ordered alphabetically all over the world. Now if I leave this
Eurofly
and press Ctrl F7,
combo box Slovakia Bratislava, 0 kilometers, collapsed.
it gives us the same list.
Austria Vienna, 53. Slovak.
This time not in a tree view, but as an ordinary list. But this time it's ordered by distance. So from the closest capital city all the way to the one that's the farthest away from our current location. Since we are currently located in Bratislava, it's obviously the closest one because we're right here. So it's 0 kilometers away. And if I keep pressing the down arrow,
Austria Vienna, 53 kilometers, 11 right, 35 minutes.
We see that Vienna, which is the capital of Austria, is 11 degrees to our right.
Austria Vienna, 53 kilometers, 11 right, 35 minutes.
53 kilometers away, and it would take us 35 minutes to get there by car.
Hungary Budapest, 163 kilometers.
Budapest, the capital of Hungary,
Hungary Budapest, 163 kilometers.
is 163 kilometers away.
Croatia Zagreb, 272 kilometers, 72 left, 3 hours, 1 minutes. Czech Republic Prague, 292 kilometers, 50 right, 3 hours, 14 minutes.
And so on.
Europe.
If we press Shift F7, it just announces the closest capital, which in this case
Slovakia Bratislava, 0 kilometers.
is Slovakia Bratislava, 0 kilometers. And if we press Ctrl Shift F7,
Combo box Sweden Stockholm, 1,249 kilometers, 3 right, 13 hours, 52 minutes. Collapsed.
it gives us the very same readout, but this time ordered by direction.
Åland Islands Mariehamn, 1,343 kilometers, 7 right, 14 hours, 55 minutes.
So it traverses around the clock or around the compass, starting at 1.
Slovakia Bratislava, 0 kilometers. American Samoa Pago Pago, 16,183 kilometers, 13 right, 7 days, 11 hours, 48 minutes. New Alofi, 16,721 kilometers 13 right 7 days 17 hours 47 minutes. Samoa Apia, 16,115 kilometers 15 right 7 days 11 hours 3 minutes.
Going all the way to one left, or to 359 degrees if we were using the absolute north. The same works with all the other keys that I've mentioned. So F5 would give us the readout of continents ordered alphabetically. Control F5 would give us all the continents from the closest to the farthest in relation to our current position. Shift F5 on its own would just announce the closest continent.
Adriatic Sea, 368 kilometers 146.
In this case, that would be the Adriatic Sea, because we're currently in Europe, and the Adriatic Sea.
Adriatic Sea,
368 kilometers away is the closest different continent or sea than the one where we're currently at. And Control Shift F5 would give us the same readout, but this time ordered by direction, from 1 o'clock on our right all the way to 11 o'clock on our left. Or if you are using degrees, it would be from 1 degree on your right if there is something in that direction, all the way to 359 degrees, which is 1 degree left of north. And if we did this for airports, that would be F8 on its own. For the alphabetical list of airports, Control F8 for the airports ordered by distance, from the closest to the farthest. Shift F8 would just read out the closest airport, and Control Shift F8 would give us the airports ordered by direction, and the same would go for like F9, which are our favorites, for F11, which refers to islands, etc. So for instance, if we want to find out what's the capital that's the farthest away from our current position, we could press Control F7 to get the capital readout by distance, and then press the End key to get all the way to the very bottom of the list.
New Zealand Wellington, NZWN, 18,122 kilometers.
And we see that it's Wellington, which is the capital of New Zealand, and that it's over 18,000, I believe, 100 something kilometers away from our current location. Obviously, we could press Enter on any of these items that we get in these lists, and we would move straight to that location. So if I pressed Enter right now,
Eurofly 3 window,
I would be in Wellington. But this is already starting to cover the next topic, which we'll do in part 4, and that is how to move along the map. So I'll be looking forward to meeting you again in part 4, moving on the map. In case this has not exhausted you enough yet, but it's rather made you more delighted and more excited to see what's next and what other features the map in Eurofly 3 has, which I sincerely hope is the case, rather than making you all exhausted and bored. See you next time.